Even Sebas, who was theoretically as strong as her, felt a chill go up his spine. She had the strongest genuine urge to kill of all Nazarik's floor guardians. An animosity swirled that made it clear her scuffles with Aura were nothing but childish play. Depending on how this was handled, a battle only one would walk away from could break out. Vermilion spread from Sholtia's crimson irises over the whites of her eyes, like oozing blood. Sebas, try saying that again. Or would you, a dragonman, want to fight me in your current form? Her fully crimson eyeballs rolled wildly to the death. I misspoke. Please forgive me. I just worry that perhaps your blood frenzy may activate. Sholtia responded with silence. Sebas could tell it was because she was worried about that herself. In Yggdrasil, strong classes were given weak points and penalties to make the game balanced. One of Sholtia's handful of penalties was that if she got too much blood on her, she would be at the mercy of her killing urge. In exchange for a jump in combat ability, she would lose control blood frenzy. So Sholtia was liable to ignore orders and go on a rampage. Aints had actually chosen her for this mission by process of elimination. Albedo had to protect the great tomb of Nazarik while he was gone. Of the two remaining guardians, Cocytus and Sholtia, only Sholtia could pass for human at a distance. She breathed deeply in and out for a few seconds. This was probably to control her anger. Perhaps it was also to suppress the anxiety that had welled up in her mind. She took one last big breath. Her face was the same as always, that of a bewitching, innocent little girl. The color of her eyes had also gone back to normal. Anyhow, it's faster if we drink them up, because then they ray our slaves. And it's not as if we have to bring them back alive. Lord Ain't said it's fine, and I'll keep blood frenzy under control. By sucking up all of someone's blood, vampires could create unconditionally obedient subordinates. Normal vampires could make only lesser vampires of inferior intelligence. But Sholtia could create vampires that had more or less the same mental faculties as humans. There was a limit to the number she could capture, but when operating on the premise that it didn't matter if the captives were taken dead or alive, she was surely a superior hunter. Yes, I will do a splendid job carrying out the duties Lord Aints bestowed upon me. He will praise me saying, nice job, you are my most precious slave. And then he'll say, you are the one most fit to stand at my side. Please forgive my thoughtlessness. This was an honest expression of Sebas' feelings. What he had said was abusive toward Sholtia, and also I didn't realize it was a slight to Lord Aints for choosing you. How rude of me. I hope you will forgive this unpleasantness. Just as he was saying, and you as well, with bows to solution and the vampires, the carriage jolted, and they heard the horses neighing. We appear to have stopped. Yes, Sholtia had been deep in a daydream about the joy her successful completion of this mission would bring her master, but now she grinned like a little girl planning something naughty. Sebas stroked his beard with a silent smile. The 10 men who had come out of the nearby forest made a half-circle around the carriage. They were all outfitted differently. Their equipment wasn't all well made, but it wasn't shoddy either. It was clear they took care of their weapons. They were talking among themselves, wondering what to do with their prey and what order they should go in. They were completely unguarded. They had done this many times. It would have been stranger if they felt randomly nervous for this one. Zack hopped out of the box seat and trotted over to the men. He cut the reins beforehand to ensure no escape. He had also already rigged one of the doors so it wouldn't open. Only the door facing the group of men would work. The men flashed their weapons so the prey inside the carriage could see a silent warning about what would happen if they didn't hurry up and get out. As if in reply, the carriage door slowly opened. A beautiful woman came into view in the moonlight. The mercenaries know, the bandits focused their vulgar grins and lusty stares on her. Delight was written on their faces. One of them was shocked Zack. His surprise in a nutshell was this: who's that? He didn't know, but he recognized the carriage anywhere. That discrepancy threw him into a sea of confusion, and he couldn't say a word. When another woman dressed the same way appeared, a couple of the others began to look perplexed. Zack had told them all he was bringing a young lady who didn't know much about the world and her elderly butler. Then another girl appeared. She looked young enough to be called a child. All their doubts no longer mattered. Her fine silver hair sparkled as it reflected the moonlight. Her crimson eyes glistened with a bewitching luster. Unable even to utter words of admiration, The bandits just sighed at her loveliness. It was a moment that proved how even animal lust would melt away in the face of true beauty. An indecent smile played across Sholtia's face. She walked readily up to the men, basking in their fascinated gazes. "Thank you all for gathering here for me. And may I ask who is the most distinguished among you? I'd like to do some negotiating. Is it you?" Noticing that all the bandits turned to look at one man, she judged that she had all the information she needed. In other words, every other man was unnecessary. Negotiate. The one who seemed like the leader finally recovered from his initial encounter with this peerless beauty and took a step forward. "Ah, forgive me. That was just a mischievous joke to gather some intelligence from you." "Really do forgive me. Who the hell are?" whispered Zack, and Sholtia turned to him. "You must be Zack. I'll hand over solution as promised, so can we have you just wait over there?" A few of the men looked at one another for an explanation, but heh, you have some pretty nice equipment there for a kid who, I am gonna make you squeal. A bandit who happened to be standing in front of Sholtia reached out an arm for her chest, which was quite big for her apparent age. Then it fell to the ground. "Please don't touch me with your filthy hands." He gaped at his arm. It was missing everything past the wrist. He let out a late scream. My hand, my husband, you needn't scream so much simply because you've lost a hand. You're a man," Sholtia said quietly. She nonchalantly waved her own hand. At the same time, the man's head thudded to the ground. She isn't even holding a knife. How did she do that with just her pretty hands? All the bandits were reeling from the mental shock. They were dumbfounded by the dreamlike event. The scene was unreal, but fear of what happened next jolted them back. The blood spewing out from the man's severed neck gathered. It seemed to have its own will. Above Sholtia's head, it formed a sphere. Sholtia and the others from Nazarick knew it was made using the skill blood pool. But the first thing the men thought, not aware of the true nature of the inhuman feat they were witnessing, was she's a caster. If they were a bit more knowledgeable, they should have been able to give a more specific warning. Caster was, at best, a broad category. The way to approach them differed per class. Someone seeing Sholtia clad in nothing but a dress might think of arcane-type magic, or maybe psychic-type, but since no one had cried out anything like that, it was safe to assume they had no understanding of magic. In other words, they thought anything they couldn't understand was magic. Sholtia looked at the bandits, who were scrambling to get their swords up, with disinterest. "Well, this is a bore. You two can take it from here. Just don't do that or that, understand?" "Yes, Mistress Sholtia." The vampires to her rear on either side stepped forward and punched the face off a bandit about to swing his sword at Sholtia. It was like they hit him as hard as they could with metal rods. With a noise like a balloon popping, the bandit flew into the air. All kinds of matter, a mix of blood and brains, splattered out of his head. The fluids glittering in the moonlight were beautiful. They were horrifying at the same time. The sound of the tumbling corpse pulled to the ground by gravity signaled the start of fear and agony for the bandits. It brought joy to Sholtia, and it began the battle. Half the corpse's head was blown away. Pink brains spilled from the gaping wound. Zack watched the scene unfold with a disbelieving, twitching smile on his face. The scene before him was too much. Just the smell of blood was making him sick. Human arms and legs were being torn off as if they were made from paper. Heads gripped between two hands burst like pomegranates. Armor was ripped off. Hands jammed into the torsos. Glistening wet intestines, yards of them were yanked out. That they didn't immediately die from all this showed how resilient humans were. On the ground was one who had tried to run. Both his legs were smashed. White things' bones protruded through the flesh and skin. He was frantically clawing at the dirt with both hands. He tried to get even a little farther away from the fear. He struggled to live even a little longer. The young, peerless beauty's off-key laughter grated strangely on Zack's ears as she looked down at the man prostrate at her feet. He was begging for his life. Why is this happening? Zack thought desperately. No matter how one tried to sugarcoat it, the natural law at the root of this world was survival of the fittest. It was completely and utterly normal for the strong to take from the weak. Zack had done it himself, but he still wondered if things this awful should be allowed to happen. There was no excuse. He could not accept such horrific methods of killing. Then what do? They were not attacking him at the moment, but if he tried to run, he was sure they'd do something to make it, so he could never do such a thing again, something so painful it would make him vomit. Through his clothes, he touched the dagger in his breast pocket. How useless. These monsters could tear off people's arms easily. There was no way he'd be able to fight them with that thing. What did I do to deserve this? He never bothered these monsters. Zack wrapped his arms around his body, trying to hide. His teeth chattered rhythmically, and it was too loud. What if they hear me and come this way? He desperately tried to stop the noise, but his teeth continued to chatter. What are they anyway? He had no idea who these freaks were. Just as he thought that Zack, come this way, he heard a voice behind him. It was a clear, refreshing voice that didn't match the brutal display before him. He turned around, terrified, to find the one who had hired him standing there. She usually raised her conceited voice to make a fuss. He never imagined he'd see this expression on her face. If he had any presence of mind, he would have been on guard. But confused, in this strange world reeking of blood, he had no time to sense something was off. Who are those people? His voice trembled as he shouted at the young lady, who hadn't seemed to know much about this world. Don't you think you should have told me they were coming if they were coming? Yes. If she had done that, none of this would have happened. These horrors are all this unpleasant woman's fault. Don't just stand there, say something. This is all you're doing. Fed by impatience and fear, Zack's anger flared. He reached out to grab Solution's breasts and roughly shook them back and forth. Understood. Come this way, you'll save me. No. I thought you could entertain me some at the end. She put her cold white hands over the top of his and squeezed. Still holding them, she set off walking. Master Sebas doesn't much care for this sort of thing, so even though I have permission, let us do it over here. Zack couldn't understand what she was saying to him. Being taken off somewhere separately made him feel like maybe, just maybe, he had a chance at surviving. He shut his ears to the screams that could still be heard behind them. What could I have done? Zack was weak. There was no way he could have saved men who were supposed to be stronger than he was. Please don't be too rough. I'd like it if you could be gentle. She invited him into the shadow of the carriage. While she was whispering, she reached around her back to loosen her dress. Zack was dumbfounded. What was she doing? He watched her as if he was studying a strange creature, trying to make out what it was doing. Her hands didn't stop, so he finally asked her, "What are you doing?" I wonder she loosened the bustier she was wearing underneath her dress. As if waiting for that moment, her breasts jumped out. They came to conic points, and her white skin was almost translucent in the moonlight. Zack gulped in spite of himself. Go ahead. She thrust her bare chest at him, all but saying, touch me. What, forgetting everything, he simply stared at her. She was beautiful. She had a body more beautiful than any woman he'd ever seen before. Up until now, the prettiest girl he'd ever had was, as might be expected from another raid on a carriage. By the time his turn came around, she'd been limp, and could barely move a muscle. She'd just spread her legs like a frog. That hadn't stopped her from being beautiful, though. But the woman he was with today was even more gorgeous, and she would react. Desire lit a fire inside him. The area between his legs especially was growing warmer. Panting like a dog, he slid a hand over her skin. It felt like silk. No longer able to hold himself back, he dug his fingers into her perfectly formed breast and squeezed. Glurp, his hands sank in. Her skin was so soft Zack felt like his hands sank right into her. That's what he thought at first. But with one look at his hand, he saw and understood a moment later that he was wrong. His hand had literally sunken into her body. What is this? He yelped, unable to comprehend the situation, and tried to pull out his hand. It didn't budge. Then instead of coming out, it was dragged in farther. Inside, Solution's body had countless tentacles. She wrapped them around his hand and seemed to be trying to suck him in. Despite the strange circumstances, Solution's shapely face didn't register any change. She just gazed silently at Zack. She had the cold, merciless expression of a scientist who had just injected a test animal with a lethal substance. Her eyes sparkled with curiosity. Hey, stop. Let me go. Zack formed a fist with his free hand and slugged Solution in the face as hard as he could. He punched her once, twice, 3 times. He didn't care if his fist got thrashed. He delivered hits with his full body weight behind them. Solution took his all-out punches straight to her pretty face without so much as flinching. It didn't even look like she felt any pain. Meanwhile, what his hand felt when he punched her sent a shiver up his spine. It was like punching a soft leather bag submerged in water. The impact of hand to bone that he expected never came. She was definitely not human. The hellish scene behind them which he'd forgotten in all the excitement, flitted across his mind. He bit back a scream. He'd finally realized the woman bearing her skin in front of him was a monster too. Do you understand now? Then I am going to start, okay? Before he could ask her what they were starting, his swallowed-up hand was assailed by acute pain, like it was stabbed by hundreds of pins at once. Arg, I am melting you. He heard her cold words through the pain, but he didn't understand what they meant. The idea was too great a departure from the world he knew. I love watching things melt, and you said you wanted to get inside me so it works out perfectly. Jayarog, you fucking monster, D. Zack spat, suppressing the pain, as he drew the dagger in his breast pocket. In one smooth motion, he dug it deep into Solution S face. She jumped, that's what you get, but he realized how short-sighted he was a moment later. What happens to the surface of a lake when someone stabs it with a knife? At most, it makes some ripples, and that's what happened now. With the dagger still sticking out of her face, Solution rolled her eyes to fix them on Zack. She began to speak. My apologies, I have physical attack resistance, so you can hurt me that way. Anyhow, I am going to melt you now, okay? A pungent odor filled the air. A few seconds later, the dagger slipped out of her face and fell to the ground. Its blade was dissolved. Her beautiful face beneath it was unharmed as she claimed. What even are you? He whimpered. The fear of his imminent death made him half forget the insane amount of pain radiating from his hand. Now his eyes were shedding big teardrops. The answer he received made him want to plug his ears. A predatory slime. I don't have much time, so I am going to swallow you up all at once, okay? His arm was slurped inside her instantly. Her power was so overwhelming that Zack's resistance was futile. Stop, 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 stop. Help, help, help. He cried, screamed, and begged for his life, but the force that was sucking him into her body remained strong. It was strength a human had no chance at fighting, and it swallowed up his shoulder. Lilia. He shouted that name as his last word, and Zack's face was sucked into Solution S body. The rest of his body was engulfed, just the way a snake eats. In just a few minutes, there were no longer any living things in the area. Now, there was nothing but the pungent odor hanging in the air. No, there was one man who still had his life. He worked his tongue furiously as he groveled at Sholtia's feet he was cleaning. She'd gotten some cerebrospinal fluid on her high heels when she randomly stomped on one of the bandits' heads. Once her heels had regained their pretty shine, she cast a satisfied look at him. Nice work. Now then, as promised, we won kill you. The man's face had been twisted in fear, but now he looked up at her from his bootlicking posture, filled with gratitude. He bowed frantically, giving thanks. Sholtia looked at the dog-like man with a mother's affection and then snapped her fingers. Drink up. The man realized what those words meant when the two vampire brides came up next to him. You'll be given life as an undead, so I wasn't lying. As she watched the vampire brides bite into him ferociously, his life draining swiftly out of him, Sholtia called to Solution, who was walking over from the direction of the carriage, adjusting her disheveled chest and neckline. Oh, finished already? Yes, I am quite satisfied. Thank you, don't mention it. We were both from Nazarick after all. So did Mr. Human feel any good? We were still in the middle of it. Would you like to see? Oh, can I? Then could you show me just a bit? The man's arm suddenly popped out of Solution's face. A pungent odor filled the area it came from the arm. The skin was melting off, having been bathed in strong acid. The muscles smoked as the blood running over them reacted with the acid. The arm, looking as though it had reached out of a lake, groped frantically for something to grab. With each twist, fluids oozed from his dissolved skin and went flying everywhere. My apologies, Solution said, with the arm still sticking out of her mouth. I didn't realize he was still so lively. Then she began to casually cram it back into her face. Once she de-stuffed the flailing arm in all the way, she smiled again. Wow, it's impossible to tell from the outside that you just swallowed a whole person. Thank you, it's because I am empty inside. And I think, since I am this sort of creature, there must be some magical effect at work. Perhaps it's none of my business, but when will he die? If you told me to kill him now, I could secrete a stronger acid, but he seemed to want to get inside me so badly. I think I'll let him enjoy it for a day or so. You can even hear him scream. Did you burn his vocal cords? No, they sometimes suffocate if you burn their throats. So I put part of my body inside him to hold them still. That is also how I keep the smell from coming out. I must say the amount of care you take with these things, enjoying them up to the last possible second, is impressive. So can you pick where you want to burn? For example, could you choose just one part you want to burn? Yes, I can do that quite easily. As proof of that, I have various items such as scrolls and potions stored in my body right now, and none of them are being harmed. I could move around like normal, even if I put you inside me, Mistress Sholtia that is, as long as you didn't run amok in there. Really.